They said it was impossible, not because of rules or logic, but because some matchups simply don't belong in the same timeline. On one side, a name etched in iron and flame. Mike Tyson, the storm that reshaped heavyweight boxing. A man whose punches sounded like punctuation marks at the end of brutal sentences. And on the other, a towering figure from the modern era, Joe Joyce, the juggernaut, known for walking through fire with a granite chin and a pace that breaks spirits. No one asked for this fight, yet the second the matchup was whispered into the wind, it became all anyone could talk about. It wasn't just the contrast in eras, it was the contrast in styles, personalities, and legacies. Tyson, short for a heavyweight but possessed with the speed and violence of a predator, a man who could end a fight before the echo of the first bell had faded. Joyce, calculated and relentless, with an engine that doesn't stall and fists that land like falling doors. If Tyson was the lightning, Joyce was the rumble that follows. Slow, heavy, but inevitable. That collision point, where Tyson's feral explosiveness meets Joyce's grinding pressure, is what makes this story a ticking time bomb. This isn't about nostalgia versus youth. It's about what happens when raw fury is thrown into the same ring as unstoppable will. Joyce has been criticized for his plodding footwork, his lack of head movement, his tendency to take damage early. But he's also turned that criticism into fuel, absorbing punishment just long enough to impose his suffocating rhythm. And no matter how many times he's doubted, he keeps moving forward. But Tyson, he doesn't give you time to move forward. He erupts from his corner like he's chasing time itself, trying to end you before you know what hit you. What adds another layer to this story is the mental warfare. Tyson's stare-downs are legend, a glare that pierces through confidence and leaves doubt in its place. But Joyce is unshakable. He doesn't flinch. He doesn't blink. His calm is unnerving, like someone who's already mapped out every round and doesn't care what comes his way. Tyson feeds on fear. Joyce offers none. And that silent resistance. That's where things begin to twist. Imagine the first round. Tyson pacing like a caged lion, teeth clenched, eyes drilling into his opponent. Joyce, statuesque, absorbing it all without expression. The bell rings. Tyson closes the distance in a blink. The crowd leans forward. A left hook whistles through the air like a warning shot. Joyce takes it. Doesn't step back. Doesn't stagger. Just stares. That's when Tyson knows. This fight won't be over in 2 minutes. That realization changes everything. The stakes here are more than pride or titles. This is a generational battle. A test of whether the chaos of the past can overpower the resilience of the present. For Tyson, it's a statement that his savagery can transcend decades, that he still has the power to erase plans with one punch. For Joyce, it's validation, that his durability isn't just survival, it's strategy. That the new breed can stand toe-to-toe with legends and not blink. As the rounds unfold, tension builds like a low hum that refuses to go silent. Tyson throws thunder, each punch meant to end the story then and there. Joyce keeps absorbing, calculating, returning fire with mechanical precision. Neither man backs down. Neither man gives ground. Blood, sweat, and breath fill the spaces between exchanges. And as they trade blows in a war of attrition, something becomes clear. This isn't just a fight. It's a question. What breaks first? Power or persistence? By round 6, there's no clear winner, only chaos wrapped in fatigue. Tyson's speed hasn't faded, but Joyce's resistance is starting to feel otherworldly. Tyson lands a clean uppercut that would have crumbled most opponents. Joyce stumbles but doesn't fall. Instead, he grins. Not in arrogance, but in recognition. That was the shot, and it didn't finish him. Tyson sees it too. The grin, the acknowledgement, the silent message. You get me with everything, and I'm still here. And in that moment, for the first time, doubt creeps into Tyson's eyes. Not fear, not surrender, but curiosity. What now? That's where everything pauses, where breath catches in throats and time seems to stretch. Tyson circling, breathing heavier, eyes trying to find answers where none exist. Joyce still advancing, still grinding forward like a man who hasn't even tapped into his reserves. The ring shrinks. The noise fades. It becomes a storm with no eye, just chaos on both sides. And right before the bell ends the round, Tyson winds up, digs deep, and unleashes a right hook meant to silence the night. The kind of punch that can realign a man's legacy. It lands, flush, Crowd explodes. Joyce's head snaps to the side. His body stiffens. But he doesn't go down. He takes one slow step forward. And then the bell rings. A murmur swept through the crowd, not loud, but sharp, like the hiss before a fire catches. Joyce hadn't just taken the punch. He absorbed it like it was part of the plan. And for the first time, something unspoken shifted in the arena. Tyson's eyes flicked to the corner, just for a second. He'd landed a bomb that would have sent most heavyweights to the canvas. But Joyce? He looked like a man waking up, not one on the verge of collapse. The familiar equation, hit them hard, hit them early, end it fast, was falling apart in real time. The next round didn't begin with Tyson exploding out of the gate. He paused. Not out of hesitation, but recalibration. Joyce had disrupted the pattern. That cold, methodical advance, the refusal to retreat, the refusal to react the way opponents were supposed to, it was unnerving. Tyson, for all his rage and violence, was a tactician underneath it all. And now, standing across from him, was a man he couldn't intimidate, couldn't rattle, couldn't fold. Joyce had forced the storm to think. But the most unexpected twist wasn't in the fists, it was in the footwork. Tyson, known for his peekaboo style and relentless forward motion, suddenly started circling more. Not retreating, but changing the rhythm. Cutting angles, giving Joyce new looks. The crowd noticed. Trainers in both corners leaned in. Tyson was adjusting. And Joyce? He was walking into a fight that was no longer predictable. As the minutes bled away, something unusual started to bubble under the surface. Joyce's right eye. It had been subtly swelling, but now it was visibly puffing. A quiet vulnerability in a man who had seemed unbreakable all night. The commentators hesitated, not wanting to jinx it, but the story had started writing itself. Tyson noticed it too. He feinted toward the left, gauging the reaction. Joyce's blink was half a second slower. It wasn't dramatic, but in a fight like this, a fraction of a second was a chasm. Tyson's corner was electric with urgency, sensing the opportunity. Work the right side, the trainer snapped. Tyson nodded once, already 5 steps ahead, and just like that, the dynamic began to tilt again. The power that had seemed to bounce off Joyce earlier now found a crack to exploit. Tyson didn't throw with reckless fury. He picked shots with cruel precision. Each punch had a message. I see you. I see the weakness. But Joyce wasn't blind to what was happening. His expression never changed, but his body did. He tightened his guard, shortened his combinations, shifted his weight to protect the vulnerable eye. It was a quiet battle happening underneath the obvious one, chest hidden inside a war. And that's when it happened. Midway through the 9th, Tyson pressed forward with a vicious uppercut that forced Joyce back a step. For the first time in the fight, Joyce stumbled not from a punch, but from his own footing. A rare misstep. Tyson lunged, trying to capitalize, but Joyce, off balance and reactive, swung a wide hook out of instinct more than strategy. It landed, not cleanly, not with full power, but awkwardly, on Tyson's temple. And Mike froze. Not like he was hurt, more like he'd been disconnected for a split second. His knees buckled, not from pain but disorientation. His glove touched the canvas. Not a knockdown by force. A technical one, but in boxing, a knockdown is a knockdown. The referee stepped in, separating them, giving Tyson the count. He got up immediately, eyes clear, legs steady. But the moment had happened. It was real. The crowd erupted, not in triumph or panic, but in pure shock. Tyson had been dropped, not beaten, not broken, but humbled by the one man who refused to fall. That knockdown wasn't just a point on the scorecard. It was psychological. The aura around Tyson, a force that haunted every opponent before the first punch, had cracked. And Joyce? He didn't celebrate. He didn't even smile. He walked back to his corner like a man who expected that exact moment, like it had always been part of the plan. But behind the silence, new doubts started rising. Joyce's eye had nearly shut by the 10th. His breathing was deeper, his mouth hanging open between combinations. The granite had begun to chip, and Tyson, shaking off the shock of the previous round, came out like a man chasing time. No showboating, no head games, just controlled savagery aimed straight at the weakness. And yet, even as Tyson surged and Joyce absorbed, both men seemed to understand something deeper was unfolding. This wasn't about dominance anymore. This was about survival, about who could take more, adjust faster, and refuse longer. Every second felt heavier than the last. Every missed punch felt like a missed opportunity, and every landed shot now came with consequences. The crowd no longer cheered after each exchange. They held their breath. The tension wasn't just in the fists. It was in the idea that this fight had become something neither man fully controlled anymore. And then, late in the 11th, Joyce leaned in just a little too far. Tyson saw it. He dipped, twisted, and uncorked a body shot so vicious it echoed in the bones of everyone watching. Joyce folded, but didn't fall. And before Tyson could follow up, the bell rang. There was a moment, right after the bell, when both corners stood frozen, unsure if Joyce would make it back to the stool or collapse where he stood. That body shot hadn't just taken the air out of him. It had taken the weight out of his legs, the tension out of his spine. His corner leaned over the ropes, yelling his name, but he didn't answer right away. Instead, he turned slowly, blinking through a half-shut eye, and walked to his stool with the gait of a man holding himself together by sheer memory. Tyson didn't celebrate, didn't raise his arms. He just watched, not with arrogance, but with something closer to disbelief. He had landed that shot before. It had ended careers. Tonight, it had only bought him another 3 minutes. The 12th round was unlike anything that came before it. All the strategies were gone, the patterns shredded. This wasn't boxing anymore. It was something raw. Both men stood center ring with nothing left but instinct, adrenaline, and a strange respect that had grown like a weed in the cracks of their war. Tyson struck first, low and tight. Left hook, right uppercut, the kind of combination that had torn through champions in seconds. Joyce responded, slower but still dangerous, his shots looping wide, but landing with the sound of meat against stone. The crowd was no longer roaring. They were locked in, standing, silent, like witnesses to something mythic. Each punch now came with the question, is this the one that ends it? Tyson's head moved less, his arms hanging lower. Joyce's face was swelling into something unrecognizable. Still, neither man broke. And then, in the final minute, it happened. Tyson faked a jab and lunged inside, aiming for the damaged eye, trying to close the show. Joyce anticipated it, not with speed, but with timing, and pivoted just enough to shift the angle. What followed wasn't powerful, it wasn't even clean, but it was perfect. A short, looping right hand found Tyson's jaw mid-motion, turning his head just enough to stall his momentum. It wasn't a knockdown, but it froze Tyson in place, his balance momentarily disrupted. And Joyce, barely standing, followed it with a left to the ribs. One final message. Tyson didn't fall. He backed up 2 steps, blinked, and nodded. That nod wasn't surrender. It was something rare, something almost sacred between fighters. It said, "You made it." And Joyce, in response, simply dropped his gloves for a half second, not to taunt, but to breathe. It was over, even before the bell rang. When it did, the two collapsed into each other, not in embrace, but in exhaustion. Tyson leaned his forehead against Joyce's shoulder, muttering something lost beneath the cheers that finally erupted from the crowd. Joyce didn't answer. He couldn't speak. His body had survived the storm, but it was clear the cost was high. The judges read the scores slowly, carefully, as if the weight of the night demanded precision. One gave it to Tyson, one to Joyce. The third card, a draw. A split draw. No winner, no loser. But that wasn't the twist. The real twist came in the post-fight interview. Tyson, bruised and grinning through a bloodied lip, took the mic first. He didn't speak like a man angry about the result. He spoke like someone who had been reminded of something he thought he'd lost. "I came in here to fight," he said, voice hoarse. "But that guy over there, he made me remember why I started in the first place." Then he paused, looked at Joyce. "If I fought that guy in my prime," Tyson said, "I still don't know if I'd win." The arena exploded, not from the compliment, but from the honesty. Tyson had always been brutal in the ring, but rarely vulnerable with words. Joyce didn't smile. He just nodded, chest rising and falling, barely able to hold up his arms. Later that night, after the cameras were gone and the adrenaline faded, footage surfaced of the two men sharing a quiet moment backstage. No entourages, no media, just two fighters, sitting on a bench, talking like old friends who'd just been through something nobody else could understand. And in that quiet corner of the night, Tyson reached over and tapped Joyce's shoulder. "You're not the juggernaut," he said with a tired laugh. "You're the damn wall." And Joyce, still sore, still blinking through the swelling, replied without a beat, "You're the one who broke through it." The fight didn't deliver a knockout. It didn't deliver a winner, but it delivered something else, something deeper. A reminder that greatness isn't always measured in titles or finishes. Sometimes it's in the man who endures. Sometimes it's in the man who adapts. And sometimes it's in the silence between two warriors who gave everything and walked out with more than they ever expected. And long after the ring was empty and the lights dimmed, one question lingered in the minds of everyone who watched. What happens when the unstoppable force meets the unbreakable man? And neither one falls.